Your boy is back to work. The past couple of days, Laura's been around. It's always been the weekend. So it's been the weekend, and then Laura was at home because she was on holiday from work. But your boy, back, he's got the house to himself, and you know what that means? We're working. I'm actually not feeling it that much today. I kind of felt more productive yesterday and the day before. But I'm going to switch task in a minute because I feel like I could be more productive doing something else. And I have like a list of things that I want to do on a daily basis now. Instead of like, I'm going to get around to it, I'm going to set things to do every single day, and I want to do at least one or two of these things every single day. So I've got my to-do list. When I'm in my walk in the mornings, I write my to-do list I'm going to chip off. But I started off the day trying to get into work by doing some programming, but I've kind of hit a bit of a brick wall. My next user story that I've started is about controlling. So basically, like, my microservice says, hey, these things are valid. As soon as you create like an object in my world, it'll automatically apply all the ones that are valid to your account, let's say. But you can like basically manually deactivate ones. So you could say, I want to deactivate this one, deactivate this one, deactivate this one. And what it will do is it'll add it to a list of deactivated objects on your account, and then it will calculate on the fly all the ones that are active every time you talk to it or it tries to use them or whatever. I'm trying to figure out a way of how to write automation tests that are like clean and concise, that cover all of that. And it is just one of them things that's just a bit of a faff. It's like a bit of a like complicated, bizarrely complicated because of like basically how many different scenarios there are. But also the thing that I'm adding comes from somewhere. So it's not like I can just magic them up. I'm using the real ones that are used in the account, in the microservice. Like what I do is I create fake versions of your data in the database, but this is like config driven. So I can't just create fake ones. But yeah, I want to be able to like simply say, because I want to do is like, what happens if you try and delete one that's already been deleted? I want to know what happens. You know, I want to make sure that it doesn't try and delete it in the database again and things like that. But how do I do that without just like hard coding GUIDs around, which doesn't feel nice? But I don't want to make modifications to the data model for the tests. So I'm just trying to figure out a solution for that. And I think once I've figured out that solution, I'm gonna shift on to something else. I'm gonna have a cup of tea, shift on to something else, because I feel like I'll be more productive that way. It's more complicated than it sounds. I figured out a way. It's not ideal because like I'm hard coding something. I'm hard coding the names of them, but I think that's like the best I can get away with, to be honest. It's more human friendly than a GUID. It's just not as ideal. It makes it easier to inject stuff in other places as well. It's just could be better, you know, it could be better. Now, half my problem is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump onto something else now, which is going to be email related. The problem is that I don't know how to time this. I don't know how to like measure how much time I'm spending doing this stuff. It's important that I do measure it. It's because I've really like nailed down how to time development work and haven't figured out how to time the rest of it. And therefore doing other stuff feels less productive because it's not being timed. Like I have no proof for it, you know? And therefore it feels less productive. I might end up spending less time on it than I want to, or more time on it than I should. Whereas development is a lot more like, well, this has taken 3 hours so far. I need to cram this out now in the next hour to hit my estimates and stuff. But I feel like, well, it's because now I've kind of nailed down how I'm doing programming. When I do other stuff, I don't want to create like one huge task that covers things, but it is a relatively huge thing to hit off, you know? But yeah, I'm not sure whether to like, I just haven't figured it out. I haven't figured out a way. I think I'm just gonna have to log time to stuff and work from there, but we'll see. Just gotta chip through it, man. It's also that time of the year where I get really dry hands. It's really like not good. I have to use loads of moisturiser. I still haven't bought any more. I need to buy some more. But the worst thing is that when I fixed the door handle the other week, I like punched a bit of metal and it's like scabbed my finger and it like bled like a bitch, to be honest with you. And like because of where it is, it keeps kind of reopening. But it makes it really hard to put moisturiser on it because I like effectively can't rub over that area. It's like slowly healing, but it's taking its goddamn time. Yeah, like the moisturiser, I tried moisturising it yesterday, it just irritated it. So, not good. Not good at all. It's also fucking freezing. It's freezing. Laura's got to go to like this weird festival. It's on every Christmas, but her work have an office, have like a satellite office near there. Just to go to this festival thing, which is gonna have to like stand around and like hand out raffle tickets and balloons and shit. And I do not envy her because it's gonna be bloody cold. You know, also, you know how I'm not feeling very productive. I'm gonna try and get onto something else, like I say, to feel more productive. But I think half of the problem is that I know I've just got the race left to do on Formula 1. And I just want to race the race, you know? I just want to finish the race. I might have to do it over lunchtime just to like scratch the itch, you know? We'll see. If I can't focus on this now, then I'll play a bit of Formula 1. And then, like, I've got time. I can do that. It's just, I was going to do it this evening, but I know it's bugging me. Figured out my automation tests, boys. I'm going downstairs for a cup of tea, but left my mug up here like a dickhead. I'm now trying to figure out whether or not to write the automation tests for the next part of the, like this user story is technically 2, like it's activation and deactivation, and then it's view active. It's not good, man. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. In fact, yeah, I am going to write the automation test. It's going good. Also, I came 9th in my race, which is good. I spent that over lunchtime, and then ate my sandwiches while doing some more work. But what I was doing was, I was actually on my laptop at the same time. Obviously not at the same time, but I was actually thinking of like good bullet points to hit off for some of the stuff I'm doing. So it was quite like refreshing to think about something else, because I was struggling to get into it. Think about something else while I was doing it. It's almost like gonna go sit in like a cafe to do work, to kind of actively distract yourself so that you think of stuff better, you know? It's kind of worked a treat. I won't do it all the time, but it worked a treat. I really wish, there's obviously a general election going on right now, I really wish they wouldn't just post trash through your door. It's just shitty spam. And the conversion rate can't be good. Like, you can't convert many votes by just posting some paper through my door. Don't do it, man. Save the environment. Save your printer ink and save your printer paper and just leave it, man. I mean, one person sent us an envelope with nothing on it, and then inside it, a card, well, a folded up piece of paper, with basically like vote for us on it. Like, come on. It wasn't like they put the envelope through the post. They came to the door and then put it through. What a waste of paper, man. God damn. Otherwise, a bit of a weird one now. We have, well, Laura's at this thing. She might want to be picked up about 7, which means I'm gonna have to leave here about 6:30, which means I've got to eat before then. But it's 5 now, 5 to 5. I'm trying to figure out what I can do in between now and then. What I do need to do is figure out what I'm gonna do vis-a-vis planning, because this sprint, I've already done all the automation tests for the getting the data. If I could put the data in there, then I can get it out. I've just got to put the data in there now, and then I've got to update the API gateway, which is trivial anyway. That won't take more than an hour. So I just need to figure out like what it is that I'm doing after it. I seem to be not very good at my estimates. Do you remember me saying that my estimates are like nearly always spot on? They either are or they're significantly under. Like, it's not like consistently 50% off. It's like spot on or off by 75%. But yeah, so I need to be eating in basically an hour. So what am I going to do for the next hour? Let's carry on with emails. I need to do, like I said, I need to do some planning, but I think I can do that. It's better with Atlas because I need to kind of map some stuff out. Let's write some more emails, boys. I'm going to start making dinner just so that what it is, I don't want to be in a position where Laura asks me to pick her up, but I'm like halfway through cooking, you know, or like I'm not at a point where I could leave, because she's going to want picking up at a time where I've got to leave like half an hour at least before then. So I'm eating early, but what I've been trying to do today is I've been trying to figure out like templates for how to approach. I feel like the emails I've been sending people, having read about everything that I've read about now, they're a bit too long. They're a bit too, they go into too much detail, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. They go into too much detail and they're not very good in general. So I've been trying to figure out how to do it better, because in January I'm going to have like another push at services, and I want to be at a point where I can just be like an email machine. So I'm trying to get ahead of the game, and I've been focusing today on trying to make sure that I have the right stuff set up with, like, for example, wait, what? So that I'm basically ready to go with a load of emails. But the problem I have is it takes me a long time to generate each email, my old style. So what I've been doing is I've been reading up about like how to send these kind of like cold emails, how to send chasers. I'm really not very good at sending chaser emails, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I've been doing for the past however long. Let's have some dinner. Cheese and beans and egg on toast today. I'm looking forward to it, man. Nice and simple. It's like a throwback to the times when I used to, every Sunday before I'd go to work, Sunday? Or Saturday? Saturday, I think. I used to go to work at like 2 in the afternoon or something. So in the morning, and then work from like 2 for 8 hours. That makes sense? Something like that. So what I'd do is I'd have dinner at lunchtime and I'd have something like burger, beans and chips. Oh, good times. Right, cheese, beans, egg on toast.
Kind of meal you can put brown sauce on, you know? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Fucking nailed it, mate. Literally just finished washing up, phone rings. You know, yesterday when I went to go pick up Laura, it was like 6:30 I left. But obviously it's dark outside at 6:30. I don't leave the house very much. And as soon as I left outside, I obviously knew what time it was, but as soon as I left, I was like, oh, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I de-iced the car. I'm like, oh, it must have gotten so late that it's re-iced up again. De-iced the car. Driving around, I'm like, why are there so many cars around? It's rush hour. But I felt like it was like nearly midnight, you know, when I pick her up after like a proper night out. God damn, man. I've been storming ahead on development for the first 2 hours of the day. I've finished the domain level stuff for this, well, for the second third of this microservice change. Like I say, the thing I'm working on is like basically 3 user stories. One of them I've done the microservice part. The second part I've done the microservices domain part. I just need to do the control API controller. And then I've got the third part, which is like basically the second part, but a bit different. So it's more or less copy and paste, rename some stuff. Then I just need to do the API gateway, which only really involves work for the first part, and even that is just adding a field to some stuff and letting the mappers do all the work for me. So we're going to be done by the end of the day, I reckon. I'm going to try and spend a bit of time doing something different. I need to do some planning, because if I finish this sprint today, I've not got anything else after. So I'm going to do a bit of planning today. I'm going to do some emails today. And that's what I'm going to do basically right now as I make my cup of tea. In the new year, when do you reckon like companies are most open to talking to people? It probably doesn't matter. Like what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve doesn't necessarily line up with like budgets or the start of projects. I'm sort of thinking out loud here, but I feel like I should just approach after people have had the chance to settle down after Christmas, you know? Which to me would infer the 13th of January. So let's do that. What I'm doing differently is a little bit more, I'm doing this a little bit differently to how I've done it previously. So where I've kind of like researched to the nth degree a company or a person at a company. What I'm doing now is kind of building a list of relatively short, what's the word? Kind of like, not cagey, but like the kind of email that doesn't tell you everything. It's just trying to like entice you a little bit, you know? Because I feel like what I've been doing before is effectively like laying everything out. Firstly, assuming you'd read the email. You're probably not going to read it if it's long and it's from someone you don't know. So it's much shorter. And instead of being like, here's everything, so you can decide ahead of time whether or not you're interested, it's like trying to go, here's what I'm looking for, I could really do with your help. and then kind of like, so I do enough research into them to figure out like kind of what category they fall under. So there's a number of different people I want to talk to for different reasons. Figure out what category they fall under, and then figure out enough about them so that I can tell them why I want to talk to them. And then if they respond to me, I either already have a wealth of information about them, which makes me look a bit creepy, or I can then like do more detailed diving into them and trying to figure out like what they kind of want. What I effectively want here is to convert cold people. I want to warm up some introductions. So I want to generate some meetings so that I can generate warm leads rather than cold emails, because I'm not likely to sell anything via a cold email. I'm much more likely to get a meeting, get some advice, learn from somebody via a cold email, and then potentially get introductions to other people or transition that into more of a sales pitch. That's kind of what I'm going down. I'm also generating like a list of, so the book I'm reading suggests like kind of how to write these kind of emails. And there are like effectively 5 bullet points that you want to hit. And I'm like writing down all of the different examples I have of these. So I obviously have a log of every email I've ever sent. So what I'm doing is, as I'm writing these emails, I'm kind of adding to or taking from this list so that I can generate the emails more quickly, because it's kind of a bit more of a numbers game. And I'm kind of advantaged by the fact that I've got 3 things to kind of push. I've got like RadSpider and Catalyst as the 2 main ones, and then CodeView as the 3rd. But yeah, it's a little bit different to how I've done it previously. I feel like I need to do something a little bit different. And the style I'm going towards is something that I kind of stumbled upon a little bit when I did my shift to try and get people interested in RadSpider rather than CodeViews, which was what it was at the time. It's kind of shifting towards that style a little bit further. I'm just going a little bit further to really like hammer it home a bit more. But yeah, the emails themselves are like less than basically 100 words. What is the... take less than a minute to read, and I think that's the key. Previously I was writing like big chunks, trying to kind of effectively set out my stall and explain myself, but that comes across quite pitchy and quite salesy, and I don't want to do that. Yeah, this is kind of advice that I got from the advisor guy I talked to as well, where he's like, you need to focus more on RadSpider rather than focusing on the services, and I'm kind of doing that because RadSpider at the end of the day will be the thing that be the success story, or the thing that sinks me. And the sooner and more effort I can spend on that, the better. And if I can kind of transition those people that I've been working with on this into kind of early adopters for that, and then therefore sell them something else at the same time, then win-win. But that's where I'm at. I've got my first email, and I've got a big old list of email templates as well. I was doing email templates yesterday. I've done my first email today, and I've used like half of these and then added some as well. Because obviously each client's going to be slightly different. I'm quite happy with that. Cool, that's enough. Rubber ducking. The hard part about planning is like, I have to keep like kind of shifting focus. And I think that's, to be fair, is the problem in general, really. Like whenever I'm doing something that's not development, I'm dropping context, effectively. I have to switch context to something completely different, and then I've got to regain that context when I get back into it. So like, planning this stuff here, I have to kind of remind myself of everything else I've done and how the whole platform like links together. It's such a huge platform that's so complicated for just one little noggin, you know? The next bit, I'm just trying to like isolate which events I need to listen to in order to kick off this process. And I was doing it wrong for half of it because I'm looking at the wrong microservice. I'm like letting that microservice marshal what I should be doing, and actually I should be waiting for that other microservice, because if I wait for that one, then I don't need to know all the information that's in the other one. And effectively what I was starting to do was map the repository service into this microservice to a certain extent, whereas really it's already being mapped, and like all the shit that it's got to deal with is being calculated by the analysis service, and that's the one that should be kicking off all the events. But you forget these things. It's difficult to like keep on top of all of that when you've got to switch context so much. But like I said, it's going to be next. It's not like it's even far down the road, it's next. But yeah, so I've got my next user story set up. I need another user story that's relatively small, so I'm going to need another user story on top. But it's lunchtime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go have lunch. I'm going to watch Suits as I normally do while I'm having lunch, and I'm going to read up about how to send chaser emails. That was something I was reading yesterday as of when I started cooking dinner, and then I suddenly had to leave to go pick up Laura. But that's the thing. So I just need to figure out like a game plan for how to send these emails, because I want to send a lot of them, and that obviously means sending a lot of like chasers and stuff as well. Because I think I've been waiting too long to send chasers. So we'll see how it goes. Because the truth of the matter is I don't like doing that, but something you should and need to do. So right, lunchtime. It's been a good day today so far. So I think I've figured out is that more fucking election post? God damn it! You know what? I'm going to vote based on who has sent the least amount of spam, because they're the ones that clearly care the most about the environment. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the Green Party. I think the Greens have only sent us one thing, and they sent that to Laura. Labour have sent shit tons, like absolute mammoth amounts. Brexit Party's only sent one thing through, and it looks like the Conservative are, and also Labour did the thing about the envelope thing I was talking about yesterday, but the Conservatives seem to be the wisest way of, like, the spam they've sent is the most environmentally friendly spam, if that makes sense. Like, it's like thin newspaper paper, which I imagine is better for the environment, I'd guess. I don't know, and then like a small leaflet thing. Anyway, fucking goddamn it, can't wait for this shit to be over. I love an election, probably more so than the next person, but goddamn it, am I bored of this one. Lord. Anyway, I figured out a game plan for the emails that I am going to be sending. So I figured out like effectively a rota, when to send follow-ups, more or less what's going to be in the follow-ups, but not. I'm not drafting them yet. I'm going to start drafting initial ones first, and then we'll see if we can figure out a plan for that. I feel like I'm ready on that front. I've just got to get, like I say, start generating these emails more or less en masse. To be honest, it's a bit of a numbers game. In the past, when I've done this kind of thing, I've kind of half-heartedly done it, to be honest. Like, I've not really sent that many emails, not as many as I should be. I am now slightly advantaged with Catalyst, which I haven't officially pushed, but I'm now a bit more advantaged with Catalyst because Catalyst appeals to a much wider audience, so I don't have to be so selective over who I email. I can email more or less anybody. I'm making myself a cup of tea. I'm going to get into some development for a bit. But yeah, I'm having fun. I'm living the dream today, boys. Let's put the biscuit tin over there, otherwise Laura's going to know I snack on biscuits during the day. Didn't really sleep well last night because I have been I've been like bemused by a problem I've got. I was doing planning last night, although I did watch the last 2 episodes of The Boys. Really enjoyed watching The Boys on Amazon Prime. It's really good. You should watch it if you haven't yet. But I was doing some planning before that was on, and I keep hitting this problem where I need to know of the state of something that's relatively inactive before triggering an event. It's like I care what the state of that thing is in the scenario where I don't know how to explain that without some kind of drawing. But basically I need a better solution to the one that I've currently got. There's 2 problems sitting on top of each other. One's the correlation problem, and the other one is let me get back to a whiteboard. Rubber ducking at the moment isn't going to help me. Right, I'm back. Let's get a whiteboard. I came back early to talk to you, and I've just pressed that override button on the heating so I can dry my umbrella and shit. Right. Okay, so this is going to get confusing. I don't have any other colours either, so I apologise for that. Here's my 2 problems. Firstly, isn't necessarily a problem per se, but it's an inconvenience, and that's the correlation IDs. So I've been doing a thing where all of the messages that you put on a message, so basically, right, let's go right back to ground zero, shall we, boys? 4 microservices, there's more than 4, but 4 microservices that we care about at the moment. These talk via a message bus, so they don't talk directly to each other. What they do is they raise an event, and then microservices that care subscribe to that event and then do something if that event is raised. They don't talk to each other. That's deliberate because no microservice should depend on another microservice. Now, they do have links. They do have certain things that happen. Like if one service goes down, aspects of other services will go down, but not the whole thing. And not really, to be honest with you, by go down, I don't mean go down. I mean like that the entire process. Well, if you take a step out of the process, obviously the process is going to stop at some point, but they can like kind of catch up and do things on a scenario where it can recover basically from downs. By the by, it's not important for this conversation. So I'll be using mass transit on top of Azure Service Bus to do this. And mass transit has a thing called correlated by, which is an interface that you put on your messages that then adds basically a field that's called correlation ID. Now you can set the correlation ID to be anything you want, but you want it to be used to kind of belong to an object. So if you were to raise events from this R here, I appreciate there's an E next to it, but that's supposed to be a one-to-many relationship. If you were to raise things from this R, in theory, all of the events that you would raise would have a correlation ID of the same for all R's. So usually you would set it to the R ID, the ID of the R. So you'd have an R ID and you have a correlation ID and they happen to be the same thing. Now, when this is raised, the service, the R service, decides what the correlation ID is. And that is what I think is one of my problems. It's getting in the way because there are scenarios where an event raised on R isn't necessarily, I can't see the screen. The screen turns off after a certain amount of time recording. So I now can't see what I'm pointing you at. Just because you've raised an event on R doesn't necessarily mean that the equivalent of R cares about it. So therefore, maybe I want a different correlation ID. So, as you can see here, you've got a CP as a one-to-many relationship with R has a one-to-many relationship with PR, and then PR has a one-to-many relationship with S. If I was to raise an event on S, here, you'll see it's linked to S over there, and it's also linked to S down here. I should draw the line in. So, this event here that raises to this, if this service wanted to subscribe to it, it would need its own correlation for S. And that isn't necessarily true. It could just be tracking, and so that is something that's happened on S. Obviously relates to the things that it's got further above. I might be tracking something higher up the chain, and I need to know when stuff happens lower down so that I can update the higher up thing. But I can't do that because the correlation ID is set to the S. So therefore, I either need to raise another message with a new correlation ID, in which case the R service now knows things about P. It's changing its life because the P service needs to do something, and it shouldn't be, because it should only be concentrated on itself. Or P now has to track S, and then you end up all the problems that you have with doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the dependency on the interface, which gives me the advantage of being able to publish contracts without being tied down to a version of mass transit. That's a huge advantage, to be honest with you. But then what it means is I can raise an event. So the same event, that S event, has 3 IDs on it, usually. It will have two IDs on it. No, 3 IDs. It would have the ID of the R, it would have the ID of the PR, and it would have the ID of the S. And now any consuming service can decide which one of those it wants to use as the correlation ID. That's change number 1. I feel like that's what I'm going to focus on after I've finished the next thing. Which won't take me long because all I have to do is update the API gateway, which isn't going to take me long at all. That's change number 1. In every microservice, I'm going to remove the dependency on the correlation ID and make it so that the consuming service picks what correlation ID it wants. Now, usually it's going to be the same, but there are scenarios where I've introduced secondary events or raised multiple events where I want different correlation IDs. I'm going to get away with that. I'm going to rip all those out and I'm going to raise one event and the others go, oh, S has been updated, that means I need to update TS, not S. So, problem number 1, secondary problem. This is the big problem that I keep hitting. These services, this only cares about R's, this only cares about P's, and this only cares about M's. Now, this service is gluing all of that together. So every time you create a PR, it will tell this service that something is happening, and this is basically tracking the analysis that's happening. So you interact with this, and this, and this. You never interact with this. So this is, you link and tell us what you want to do. This, you tell us how to do it, and then this is settings based on something else. That's a bad analogy, but but anyway. So this is then responsible for, which is why I put this ... in, because as I drew the diagram, I realized that I don't have this line, and I probably should, and that's probably my solution. Because the problem I'm having is, if you make an update to S, what happens if I raise a flag for S, but this isn't in the right state? That's the kind of problem. But I feel like I should be focusing on this over here. This should be updating this, and then this TC, which is linked to PR, will update S over here, and or this S will, actually, because it's more closely related to that. But anyway, the advantage of a message bus is you don't know when it's, well, the advantage and the disadvantage of the message bus is the same. If you put something on the message bus, it's guaranteed to happen. It's guaranteed that it'll either happen or it will be stored in a place where it can happen in the future. You don't know when it's going to happen though. That's one of the key problems. You don't go, hey, do this. You go, hey, I've done this, and then something else goes, oh, you've done that, I'm going to do this. Slightly flipped on its head, right? So the problem I have is, if you update F, so there is no real link between these. The link between these two things comes via R, but I don't have any track of R because I don't care about it. It's not relevant to me. That's a lie. I do have a track of R, but it's called MS, right? So if you've updated S, which is tangentially related to R, but not directly, S wants to raise an event that says, hey, this has just happened, and then I want something to go, well, no, technically it's not raising an event. S will talk to itself, so obviously the microservice can talk to itself, but it can't talk to other services. S will tell itself, MS, to do something, right? But what happens if MS isn't in a state to do that? So you might not have configured MS yet. It exists because R exists, and you can't have S without R. But MS does exist, but even though it exists, doesn't necessarily mean it's ready. So the problem I have is, there's one to many, like one to a shit ton, MS to S. Like you could in theory have infinite S's, but you're not gonna have infinite MS's. So it's unrealistic to raise an event from MS to tell, and also MS doesn't care about S. Maybe it does, maybe R does. It seems noisy. But basically my problem is, what do I do in the scenario where I want to raise an event and it's not in the correct state yet, at this precise moment in time? Now I could do retries, I could do a retry, but then effectively I'm just on a cron job. I could do message redelivery, which is that but glorified. Or I could, which is what I think this line is, relay it back to this service, and this service then tells this to do stuff, but it shouldn't be telling things to do stuff because that's not how they work. They work on events. That's the problem. And I don't know whether or not this is a code problem. I mean, this is either a pattern problem, i.e. like, this is the job of the Saga, and the Sagas should just do this, and they should be beefy enough to handle with it. Or, I wrote this last night, it could be a framework problem, i.e. like, there is a framework that does this for me and I just don't know about it. It could be a technology problem, in the sense that maybe I'm using service buses for this and I shouldn't. I should be using something like Event Grid or GCRP to directly link the microservices. But as soon as you get into the world of directly linking the microservices, the question is this an architecture problem where I've architected the platform to be distributed beyond where it's reasonable to keep track of itself? Because the thing that I have is, if I raise an event that says, hey, this has happened, that means I know you're going to want to do this. Yeah, so I've raised an event that triggers something in this service. If MS isn't ready yet, and it keeps retrying, and let's just say it retries every 5 minutes, hypothetically. S can close. S can disappear when a change has happened to PR. So as soon as you've done something to this, it will ripple through. S will disappear, S will disappear here, S will disappear here. But how do I stop something that I've already guaranteed will happen? I don't. I can't. Is that important? Question mark. The thing is, like, the user can do all of this stuff. The user can take away MS at any point just by reconfiguring it. They can't. At the moment they can. At the moment they can, and they could in the future. But I could remove that functionality. At any given point as well, the users can interact with, so at some point in the future I'll have it so the users can interact with this directly. They can't at the moment, but they can interact with this directly and effectively kick each one of them. So if they wanted to re-kick off analysis on this, they could do that. But this is the problem I've had. So I've had this problem before where I was linking the R and the P services because they have, not the R and the P service, the R and the A service, because they have very similar links. Or no, when I was solving the problem between R and A and P and A wants to raise things when R and P are in both in the same kind of certain state. I think that's where this dotted line comes in. God damn, man. This is what I mean about... This video is really long as well, I apologise. This is what I mean about only having myself to bounce these ideas off. It gets complicated really quick, and it's kind of too big a problem to rubber duck. I guess what I haven't really considered, because I don't necessarily think it's important, is how to stop things once they've started. Because the problem, like like I was saying earlier, right, the advantage of these message buses is if you put something on the message bus, it's gonna happen. But like, how to manage when you don't need it to happen anymore. So let's say hypothetically we kick off all of this stuff, and then MS changes into the state where it's not valid anymore. But like, that's happened in between messages. So this has already started doing stuff. All of a sudden it becomes invalid, exceptions start getting thrown, retries might start kicking in, but they won't kick in indefinitely. At some point that will go back to a human place to manage, and then you can automate that process if you wanted to, or add some code in that will do it for you instead. But yeah, like the crux of the matter is, how do you stop something from happening when you don't want it to happen? Now, I have something that can do that, it's the sagas, and in theory, if it happens, all I need to do is hide it from the user, to a certain extent. Like, nothing bad can happen from doing it if the user didn't want it to happen. Like, nothing, there's no negative consequence. It's not like I'm spending money on their behalf, you know? It's not like I've bought something they don't want to buy anymore. It's, I've just done some extra processing that wasn't required. So I don't think it matters. It's hard, man, it's real hard. Like I say, I keep getting into this world where it gets a bit like confusing. And what I'm thinking I might need is some kind of like bus stop, which I think is what the saga is, to be honest. It's like, what I want is to be able to raise an event and be like, hey, here's an event, but don't deliver it until this condition is true, you know? And then like when that condition becomes true, it triggers. But if it doesn't become true, or something else becomes true, I can remove the event entirely. I don't have to raise it. But kind of effectively, as soon as this has kicked off something, it happens. Like, and then you've got, it'll just, like, errors are your only option. That's the point. I think that's the thing. Is that dotted line. I'm imagining a world where that dotted line doesn't exist, and I shouldn't imagine that world because that's not how it's designed to work. This job is to synchronize these three services. And what's extra confusing is what two of the services are sources, and the other one is the processor. So it is slightly different. Like M is doing process work, whereas like R and P, it's like don't kick off until we're in the right state. That's easy. But it's like, well, yeah, don't kick off until MS is in the right state, I guess, is the correct way to think about that. Anyway, I've talked long enough. Let me go back to my drawing board and figure out what the hell's going on. Laura just messaged me saying she's getting on oh, nice. There's like a load of roads closed in Bristol today, so she was worried about buses. I was just trying to figure out where she got. Oh yeah, I know where she is. Cool. So I don't think or want this service to know about this, because in theory, when this is kicked off, when this starts, it raises it, and this thing and or multiple others, we don't know how many, like there could be, in the future there could be a lot of these, like all around here. This goes, hey, are you in a state to handle this? Yay or nay? And then it like basically bounces back to the service if there is. So if it's got stuff to do, it will send a message back to here to say, hey, here's some stuff that you should do as part of this process. But that is built by this. And that way we don't need that line there. If it's in an invalid state, it will just effectively respond nothing. And the A service doesn't need to give a shit. Like it doesn't care. Like the A service shouldn't do anything different if the M service isn't available. There's going to be a little bit of crossover with like the results. They're going to get a bit odd to deal with. How to genericize that to the point where if there was more than one M or different types of M or different letters entirely, then how do we handle that? But I think that's the way to go. So effectively we fix the correlation issue. We then make it so that we replicate the S data into the database, so it's not just held in the Saga state. Do I need to do that? No, that's used to link S and M, S and MS, because at the moment there is no MS. Link. Is that true? That's true. And then any updates to S will trigger a command to itself to say, hey, process this. That can then either trigger response, like results, effectively success results, or results that are like not successful, invalid state or whatever, and then that gets reported out as an event, like a real event, not an error. It's not an error, it's a legitimate scenario. And then we just need to worry about how to get the results back into the A service, bearing in mind the A service doesn't know what results it's expecting, what format they'll be in, or any of that shit. But to a certain extent, I don't want to overcomplicate that. I can just have the A expect M to deliver stuff, but not know, like, kind of cross the road of having multiple M's or different letters in the future. Happy with that? I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to write that down. Because the problem is, I'll forget about this in like a week's time when I actually start doing it. So what I should do is plan out the next set of user stories and tasks so that I can't deviate away from this. I always get scared when a user story is the same name as the as the feature that it's part of. It's never very good. It's never a good sign. Also, that one of the tasks is the same name as the user story. So I've got like a feature, a user story, and a task all with the same fucking name, which means basically it's impossible to split up. Oh, it's gonna be huge. Oh, fun times. Right, let's get these. I've done them all on like notepads, on post-it notes. I'm gonna get these typed up, put them into DevOps and Asana, and then I'm going to have a cup of tea and do some different type of productive. Well, this is productive. This is the thing though. This doesn't feel productive, but it is. And it's really important to step back and think about stuff every now and again, instead of just like chipping away, just doing it, you know? So yeah, it's a good thing that I've done this, but it feels unproductive. I kind of have to continually tell myself that I'm being productive, which it doesn't feel productive. Right, well, planning done. There's still some design decisions I can do when I'm actually running. So I've got 3 user stories I've just added in. One of which is that updating the correlation IDs that I was talking about earlier. And the other one is the setup for this. So like it's one of the things that's just impossible to split up, but there's like one tiny little sliver I can split off. So I'll split that off. And then I've got a 13-point story for the next thing. Oh god, it's gonna be so big. It's like gonna take me a full week on its own, I reckon. So I think it might be a case that next sprint it starts off. In fact, when is the next sprint? Because I was looking at when to make a larger sprint. 9th to basically Christmas. So I might do two week sprints after this. So like after this sprint. So the next sprint starts from the 9th and ends on the 22nd. And then the one after that starts on the 23rd and ends on the 5th. I might do that to make it fit in a sprint. Jesus Christ. Anyway, tea time, man. I'm gasping for a brew. And I need to stop talking because this video is already nearly an hour long. 50 minutes. Jesus. Hopefully you find this little insight into my thought process / what I'm doing on a daily basis more interesting than me just kind of objectively high level talking about it's going all right or it's not going all right, you know? So hopefully it's interesting. And also, if I want to catch up on vlogs, this is the only way that it's possible, right? Just going to have some heifers every now and again. To be fair, I didn't intend this today for me to ramble this long. I probably would have ended the video yesterday. But then this would have been a video on its own. And that wouldn't work, would it? That'd be too long. The worst enemy when catching up are daily vlogs. You know what I'm saying? And it's lunchtime, ladies and gentlemen. We have been rippling through. I've just did an update to version 6 of the of mass transit. I'm trying to stay on top of keeping up to date with Nougat packages and stuff, especially with .NET Core 3.1 just being released. God damn, just after I've gone to 3. I tried to do it just like kind of, not by accident, but I kind of just tried to do it in a microservice and I was getting type load exceptions, which I assumed was because I had a service myself. I had it in a separate Nougat package and it was maybe referencing that version of something and getting type load exceptions. You know, the standard shit. But it doesn't seem to be that. It doesn't appear that that's the case because I just updated that Nougat package and then tried to update it in my smallest microservice. I was doing it so I could strip out the correlation ID in the same hit. And it's failing still. It looks to be related to App Insights. They haven't released officially 6.0 of the App Insights mass transit thing. So I'm gonna have a look at logging for mass transit consumers and see if, because to be honest with you, it's not as good as I wanted it to be anyway, so I might have a look into what they recommend. Because in theory, I'm passing them a logger, and that logger is piping out to App Insights. So in theory, I don't need it anyway. Like if it's gonna log everything to the logger, then it's gonna go in App Insights, whether or not I have the App Insights specific Nougat package, right? Anyway, that's what I'm gonna do after lunch, so. Obviously, I'm not going to spend all day programming, but I'm going to do bits of it. So, yeah, I might do some emails over lunch, to be honest. That's the way I roll these days, boys. I'm trying to make a habit of making, like, basically every second of the day as productive as possible. Is it going to rain for my walk this afternoon? I don't know. I'm having myself a cup of tea. So what I do now is, like, I come down, what I did do originally when I first started working from home was at lunchtime, I'd be like, right, okay, it's lunch. I'm going to make a sandwich, I'm going to watch something on TV, which was, at the time, Suits. I'm still watching Suits. I restarted the series because the later series is like dog shit and the earlier ones are actually quite good. So I did that, and then what I did was I transitioned to watching half of it on my Nexus, so I'd eat my sandwiches in here, and then that would give me more time to go upstairs. But now what I do is come downstairs, make my sandwiches, eat them while watching Suits. And then in the last half of Suits, I'm doing something else on my laptop, which is like, just like research or writing emails, which is what I was just doing. And it's productive, I'm feeling productive AF. And every now and again, I get stuck into it and don't realise what time it is. And then I like resurface a little bit later and then realise I've got to do something else for a bit. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it, between like never taking a break and work and like taking too many breaks, I guess. But yeah, I'm walking it. Half of the challenge is just, to be honest, is like finding a habit and like getting into a routine. If you're out of a routine, it's really difficult to keep it up, I think. But I'm doing a good job so far. It is miserable out. So it's 7:20 at night. I've just dropped Laura off at a Christmas party. I haven't got a Christmas party. Not a free one anyway. I've got a Christmas meal next week. But just dropped her off at a Christmas party. Christmas work due. Already had my dinner because I had my dinner before I left. Now what do I do with the rest of my day? I've got a bit of a my jaw hurts because I was playing Queen on the way down, because I always try and, when I was driving one of her workmates as well, I always try and like put on some music that's a bit like everyone likes it, but it's really quiet, you know, so they can talk. But also there's Queen in the background, so people think I've got sophisticated taste, but I do really like Queen. But then I'm listening to all the songs and they're all crackers, and I want to like sing them and whatnot, but I can't because there's people in the car talking. So I had to kind of hold my nerve, and then on the way back I belted it, and I got a bit of a jaw ache singing so much. So I've already had a pretty productive day today. I think we're already at 8 hours, to be honest with you. Now, the thing that I've butted heads with, immediately, changing the correlation ID, sagas. The saga I'm using, the old style saga, which I prefer, to be honest with you, because it's a lot easier to unit test, requires the correlated by thing. Sad times. Explains why I used it in the first place, really. So I thought about like stopping and going back and going the other way, but I thought it's a good opportunity to learn something new. So I'm looking at the autonomous stuff. I've reconfigured a very small saga to use that framework instead of the basic one, and it works. It's not that bad to like look at, but it's not. I'm about to try and unit test it, and I think that's where it all falls down. So we'll see how it goes. I seem to remember struggling in the past to configure this thing properly. However, I now have more experience using these like in-memory message bus and stuff like that. So I think I'm gonna have to leverage that to do it. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but we'll see how it goes, I guess. That's gonna be how I'm gonna realise how bad an idea it was. But yeah, so we're staying up for Laura. Whether or not I give her a lift back, I don't know. So I think I'm gonna do that for a little bit, have a cup of tea later, probably play some Formula 1 once I start clawing my own eyes out. But just keep going. If you're feeling productive, mate, capitalise. Oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's such a pain in the ass. The other way of doing this, which is technically the old way, is by just adding like icons, orchestrates interfaces onto a standard class, and it then takes like the consume context and it just subscribes to the message bus as a standard like consumer. There's no difference between it and a normal consumer, and it's great. Like, you can do everything you want. You can just call the method. I could just mock the context and just pass it the fuck in. It doesn't matter. This is such a pain in the ass. I've got to spin up an in-memory version of the message bus. I'm just like, the test harness they offer as part of their like packages, it doesn't do what I kind of want it to do. I tried spinning up an in-memory version of the message bus. It's just too slow. It's so heavy. It's unreal. Which makes sense. Like, it's way too heavy for a unit test. I can't go that way. Oh my god, it's driving me up the gut. This is why I backed away. I mean, I've got a lot further than I have done previously, but this is why I backed away. Using the same kind of structure I did for my acceptance tests just isn't worth it. It's not worth the time hit effectively. In fact, it's slower. I don't know why it's slower. I think because of the way that the automation tests are DI is configured, because it's in spec flow instead of. But it's driving me up the wall, man. I'm going to try and go back to use their test harness instead of the in-memory version, and then see if I can figure out any like nicer extension methods to simplify stuff. It's little things like you have to start the message bus asynchronously, which means you can't put it in the constructor of an XUnit class because you can't have an async constructor. Like, little things like that. It's just such a pain in the ass. Which means I now need to start it up in somewhere else, and starting the message bus, like, fuck's sake. Oh my god. So annoying. But I'm going to have a cup of tea and I'm going to moisturise my little hands because they are I'm starting to get that thing where my knuckles start to just like bleed. Because my hands are so goddamn dry. I'm like a little reptile. I don't know how I haven't lost the plot yet. Maybe I have. But I've been working for so long today and I'm still going strong. I've not lost the will to live yet. I think it's because of what I'm doing. I'm doing something interesting. Like this kind of like spike task, kind of investigate how to do something. It's always a little bit interesting. It's a bit frustrating because it's either interesting or like frustrating enough, and it's like a balancing act. It's got to be interesting enough for the frustration not to make you want to just smash your face into a wall, you know? It's that kind of thing. All right, boys. It's nearly 10 o'clock. I've had my tea, finished watching whatever Prime Minister debate was just on. Let's knock this out of the park. First try. We're going to smash it out. We'll spend an hour on it. If we're not there, we'll call it. It's been a long ass day. Jesus Christ. I've timed 10 hours today and I timed 9.5 yesterday. FML. FML, we're going for 11, boys. Starting to get a tad frustrated now. Oh my god, like... So I've got it kind of working with the in-memory one. I can't get it working just spinning up an in-memory version of the message bus. I can get it working with the test harness. But it takes about 6 seconds to do each test. That's insane. That's astronomical. So what I have here is what I think is a 2-minute timeout on waiting for the message. I thread sleep for 4 seconds. Then, after thread sleeping, I start a stopwatch, wait, and then calculate what message is being successfully consumed. And I'm expecting my message to be successfully consumed, which I'm correlating with an ID, the correlation ID. But that waiting takes 6 seconds. Now that's not the 4 thread sleep seconds and then the 2 seconds. That is, we've done the 4, now wait 6 seconds, then you get the message out. Why? Why does that take so long? This is why people don't like testing, man. Because they're like... What I'm trying to do here isn't weird. It's not like bonkers stuff. I just want to unit test my fucking sagas. This is why I didn't do the state machine thing. Because I tried this before and it was a faff. And I couldn't get it working then. But I was trying it a different way then, in fairness. And there is no way that would work. The frustrating thing is, I think I could throw this together and it would be way quicker. I feel like I could write my own test harness and it would be better than this. By write my own test harness, I mean wrap their test harness, but make it better in a couple of places. I don't actually think that though, do I? But, no, I'm the one... Wait. I'm connecting the sensor. The observers. I could totally do that. Hang on, this isn't even using the in-memory. Wait, I'm so fucking confused right now. What is happening? Right, back on track. Also, what was that noise a minute ago? I'm losing the plot, guys. There's an email. Oh, forgive me. I'm not using their test harness. I'm using an in-memory version of the message bus and then basically creating my own test harness around that. So I start a bus hub there and then. And it does the work. but then takes 6 seconds after it's finished to figure out whether or not it's finished. And at that point, that thing I'm using is their test observer. I think I can write a better test observer. You know what? I'm just gonna fucking YOLO swag it. Let's do it. Let's see, shall we? The root problem here is the way they're using something that's like acceptance test grade. And therefore, like, acceptance, like, you're willing to pay the price of the things that you use for acceptance tests for unit tests, and there's nothing in between. I've done this before. I do this. It's quicker on mine. The minor difference is that I don't observe when the messages get. Oh my god! It's 11 o'clock at night. I think I need to sleep on this because I'm clearly like I'm clearly spinning around a little bit here. I've spent my hour. I know it's possible. It just needs some optimization. I'm going to end this video as well because it's nearly an hour long. Apologies for that, boys. I'm going to go play some Formula 1 and chillax. I had a chocolate bar today. I might have a chocolate bar as well. YOLO but swag. And chillax. I'm going to sleep on it and I'm going to wake up in the morning with an idea, with a plan of attack for what to do. And I'm going to implement it over the weekend. That's my plan. I feel like I want to carry on using this state engine, but at the moment, it's not testable in a way that I like. Or it's not testable in an acceptable way. I need to simplify that testing process. I think I can write like effectively extension methods and test helpers to simplify this process. Because at the moment I'm trying to leverage half of their stuff and it's just not happening for me. But yeah, I feel like I can do it. It's just a case of doing it. And now's not the time to do it, I don't think. So, right, thanks for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. I genuinely hope you enjoyed this. Congrats if you made it this far through and you watched the whole thing, my lord. Yeah, thanks for watching. We're going to have a fun weekend. Laura, I hear the wine is flowing at the Christmas party, so Laura is going to be in a bit of a state, I reckon, tomorrow. So I think I'll get up at a reasonable time, wake up early, do some work, and then chip on with some stuff. You know? Get on with my life, living the dream, boys! I need to do my blog post. I'm not far off it, to be honest with you. Finishing the first draft anyway, I need to polish it, because it's so difficult. Anyway, stop talking. I'm going to go to bed. I'm not going to go to bed. I'm going to stay up, just in case Laura wants to live. Would I go to bed? I probably would go to bed, actually. I'm getting old, man. I like the idea. I like being able to get up early in the morning. But like I said, I don't know when Laura's coming home. So, right. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to stop rambling on and I will catch you later.